Hi everyone. So today I discuss the topic about McLaughlin's attention processing model. So here's the objective. Identify the properties of language between the process of mechanism. Discuss each of the categories of both focal or peripheral attention. Explain the cognitive theory of second language learning and complexity leads to automatization of linguistic patterns. The models of information processing. It is proposed by McLaughlin's in 1983. In learning second language, it involves moving from controlled to automatic processing through practice. The complex behavior is composed of simple, modular processes. The mind is general purpose, symbol, processing mode. The main component process can be studied independently. The humans are autonomous and active. The second language learning. It is a mental process that views acquisition as a complex cognitive skill and confused with bilingualism and multilingualism. For example, when a person taught in both English and the language of their native country are also has capacity to speak into two languages. The conscious process where the learning of other language other than the first language takes place. The process has to take place after the first language has already been acquired, and learning a second language after first language is already established. The two main categories of attention information process. First is the focal attention. It is an information that is within one scope of active concentration on particular stimuli to the exclusion of others, which cell A is a performance that based on formal rule learning, which the information process is controlled. Cell B are the preparation in a test situation, which the process are automatic. Second is the peripheral attention. It is a representation closely associated with the external world, which central processes are more cognitive. Cell C is an accomplishment based on analogy or implicit learning, which the process is controlled. Whereas cell D is the structured in communication situation, which are the process are automatic. The types of information process. First, controlled processes. It is a process puts lots of demands on the learner's cognitive skills and short-term memory conscious typical process of learning such as a new skill, limited capacity, or temporary. Only a few elements of skill can be retained. Second, the automatic processes. It is characterized as fast, effortless, unconscious, and independent amounts of information being processed. The automatizing of multiplicity data accomplished by a process of restructuring in which the components are replaced by a more efficient prospective procedure, which are comparatively permanent. A process of more achieved skills, manage a lot of information simultaneously. Hard drive of a brain can manage thousands of bits of information. The McLaughlin's assumptions. The information process in steps or stages. For example, the eye receives visual information, encodes information into electric neutral activity, which is fed back to the brain, where it is stored and coded. The humans have limited capacity to manage controlled processes. There are limits on how much information can be processed at each stage. The second language learning is a skill. The second language process skills are more efficient through automatization. The human information processing system are interactive. Second language learning requires automatization of component subskills. Hence, the information processing approach are characterized thinking as the environment, providing input data, which is then transformed by our senses. The practical application of McLaughlin's attention processing model. Cells describe in terms of one's processing and attention to language forms as grammatical, discourse, rules, and phonological. The peripheral attention is given to language forms in more advanced language classrooms, while focal attention is given to meaning, function, purpose, or person. The child's second language consists almost exclusively of peripheral attention to language that forms cell C and D. The focal intentional attention, the capacity in grammatical explanation of the specific point in which automatic practical skill capacity focuses on modals and monitoring oneself while talking or writing scanning. The peripheral attention, new skill, and second learner successfully completes a brief conversation. Therefore, well-trained learners are an open-ended group of work, and some of them are rapidly reading. The adult second language learning involves movement from cell A through a combination of cell C to B and D. The impact of attention. It is the selective focusing on a portion of the information currently stored in the sensory register. It is attended to is influenced by information in long-term memory. Information organized in long-term memory, such as the schemata. The schemata are interrelated network of associated ideas into which new knowledge is assimilated. For example, when a child is young, they develop a schema for a dog. So, they know a dog walks on four legs. And when they goes to the zoo for the first time and see a tiger, they initially think the tiger is a dog. The nature and importance of metacognition. Metacognition is our knowledge about attention, recognition, encoding, storage, and retrieval on how those operations might best to be used and achieve a learning goal. For example, the learners monitor and control the cognitive process. They might realize that a particular strategy is not achieving they want. So they decide to try a different strategy. It contains what we know about how person variables, task variables, and strategy variables affect learning. It determines the extent of which students can be strategic learners. The metacognition knowledge develops with age, experience, and instruction. The age trends in metacognition. The primary grade children have limited knowledge of their capability in memorizing, factors that affect reading comprehension and recall. The need to tailor learning tactics to task demands. When they have learned something well enough that they can pass a test. The input and output of information processing. First is the input. It is the perception, intake sample of second language that learners are exposed. Attention through frequency of encounter with items and perceptual saliences of items. Instructional strategies that can structure learner attention. Readiness to notice particular items. Task demands or the nature of activity the learner is engaged in developing and testing strategies through. Intake the subset of all input that actually gets assigned to long-term memory, stored, inferred competence. The output. The language that learners produce either in speech, sign, or writing. It is essential production. Practice helps learner by enhancing fluency. 2. Promote development of automaticity through practice. The perception gaps in their own knowledge to move from semantic to syntactic processing that leads the learner to give more attention to relevant information. To view hypotheses based on developing interlanguage, allowing for monitoring and revision. Conversation about language, including eliciting relevant input and collaboratively solving problems. For evaluation, based on your own understanding of the report that has been tackled, explain how does the information processing model works and how do humans process information. So this is my presentation. Thank you for listening.